morning, 6 years after she was allegedly abducted by her mother in Illinois, Kayla Unbehaun has been reunited with her dad, all thanks to an employee at this shopping center in Asheville, North Carolina, nearly 700 miles away, who recognized Kayla's face from a show on Netflix. Kayla was 9 years old back in 2017 when her father, Ryan Izurka, was granted full custody of her. He says Kayla's mom, Heather, later kidnapped her after a visit.
What's most unusual is the ability to stay off the grid, if you will, for that period of time. Typically, we leave a technological breadcrumb, and those are usually very easy and quick to be tracked down.
It was a minor working at that shopping center in Asheville who spotted Kayla, recognizing her from not just the Netflix series, but also from her childhood. The connection not clear, but the store manager called police. Kayla's father saying, "I'm overjoyed that Kayla is home safe. We ask for privacy as we get to know each other again and navigate this new beginning."
For 6 long years, a mother abducted her child and vanished off the grid without leaving a single trace. No cell phones, no bank cards, an escape so flawlessly executed that it left authorities completely baffled. Yet, this sophisticated master plan unraveled all because of a fleeting 3-second image at the very end of a Netflix episode over 700 miles away from where they first disappeared. A teenage store employee happened to glance at the screen and recognized her childhood friend. Welcome to the case file, the flawless disappearance of Kayla Unbehaun. It was a remarkably ordinary day in May 2023 at a bustling shopping center in Asheville, North Carolina. The weekend crowd drifted in and out of the stores, a blur of faces carrying shopping bags and going about their routines. Among the workers was a teenage girl, simply going through the motions of her retail shift, assisting shoppers and organizing merchandise. There was absolutely no reason to suspect that this mundane afternoon would become the ultimate turning point in a nationwide manhunt that had baffled law enforcement for nearly 6 years. Then, a 15-year-old girl walked into the store, accompanied by a woman. As the teenage employee glanced up, she suddenly froze. A strange, undeniable wave of familiarity washed over her. She stared at the teenage customer, her mind frantically sorting through fragmented childhood memories. They had known each other years ago, sharing a childhood connection before a sudden, unexplained disappearance severed their bond. But it wasn't just the nostalgia of a forgotten friend that made the employee's heart race. It was a jarring, surreal realization that flawlessly connected a ghost from her past to an image she had seen just days prior on a glowing screen in her living room. Recently, the employee had been watching the latest season of Netflix's hit true crime docuseries, Unsolved Mysteries. The episode focused on parental abductions, but astoundingly, it was not even about this specific case. The missing girl's story wasn't the main narrative. Her face was merely included in a brief roll call of missing children at the very end of the broadcast. It was a digitally age-progressed photograph that flashed across the screen for no more than 3 seconds before the credits rolled. The sheer statistical improbability of this moment is staggering. What were the odds that this specific teenager would watch that exact episode, pay attention to a 3-second montage at the very end, retain the memory of an artificially aged face, and then physically cross paths with that exact missing child, nearly 700 miles away from where she vanished? It was a fateful twist that no screenwriter could have plausibly invented. This miraculous coincidence highlights the astonishing nature of the mother's 6-year evasion. In today's hyper-connected society, escaping the watchful eye of the digital grid is considered nearly impossible. Every swipe of a credit card, every cell phone ping, and every automated license plate reader acts as a beacon for law enforcement, speaking on the sheer rarity of this flawless vanishing act. A law enforcement expert noted,
What's most unusual is the ability to stay off the grid, if you will, for that period of time. Typically, we leave a technological breadcrumb, and those are usually very easy and quick to be tracked down.
Yet, for over 2,000 days, the mother had managed to leave 0 breadcrumbs. She had beaten the system, outsmarted the authorities, and successfully erased their identities. But she could not outsmart fate. A cold case was about to be blown wide open, not by a multi-state federal raid or a complex cyber investigation, but by a 3-second television cameo and a teenager's razor-sharp memory. The invisible walls the fugitives had built were finally collapsing, starting right there in the aisles of a North Carolina clothing store. The moment of recognition sent a jolt of adrenaline through the teenage employee. Trusting her instincts, she discreetly stepped away from the sales floor and alerted her store manager, who immediately dialed 911. Within minutes, the routine hum of the Asheville shopping center was pierced by the arrival of local law enforcement. Officers swiftly converged on the store, their eyes scanning the aisles until they locked onto the targets, a middle-aged woman and a teenage girl. The 6-year manhunt was about to reach its breathtaking climax, right beside the clothing racks. As the uniformed officers approached, the atmosphere in the store instantly thickened. Heather Unbehaun, who had successfully evaded the FBI, U.S. Marshals, and local police across multiple state lines, suddenly found herself cornered. But instead of panic, a hardened, calculated defiance took over. Her psychological armor, built over 2,000 days of running and hiding, immediately snapped into place. When the officers stopped the pair and began their preliminary questioning, Heather did not flinch. Relying on the fabricated reality she had meticulously constructed, she looked the officers dead in the eye and delivered her rehearsed lie. She confidently provided a fake name and a fake date of birth for herself, and seamlessly instructed her daughter to do the same. For a brief second, it seemed the deception might just work, as it had so many times before. However, the police dispatch, connected to the National Crime Database, is an unforgiving adversary. The officers ran the aliases through their system. A digital network cannot be swayed by a confident tone or a motherly facade. As the records failed to align, and the outstanding felony kidnapping warrant from Kane County, Illinois, flashed on the police terminals, the walls closed in. The 6-year illusion shattered instantly. Right there on the retail floor, Heather Unbehaun's true identity was ruthlessly unmasked, bringing her long reign of deception to a definitive end. Yet, perhaps the most chilling aspect of this confrontation was not the mother's calculated resistance, but the demeanor of the victim. At 15 years old, having spent her formative years completely isolated from her father and her true identity, Kayla did not exhibit the typical reactions of a rescued captive. There was no desperate cry for help, no hysterical breakdown, and no immediate realization that she was being saved. She stood there, absorbed in the surreal moment, exhibiting an eerie composure. She was a captive of deep psychological manipulation rather than physical chains. Reflecting on this bizarrely peaceful rescue, official media reports painted a picture of a girl who had normalized the unimaginable. Summarizing the initial encounter, reports highlighted, police stated that Kayla and her mother initially gave fake names and birthdays. Kayla appeared quite calm.
She looked relatively healthy, didn't appear to be any type of physical trauma.
Physically, the teenager was unscathed. But beneath that remarkably calm exterior lay a psychological labyrinth. The physical hunt was finally over, and the fugitives were caught, but the arduous journey of unraveling 6 years of lies was just beginning. To truly comprehend why this case hit an impenetrable brick wall for over half a decade, we must rewind the clock to the summer of 2017. The setting was the quiet suburbs of Illinois, where a bitter family dispute had resulted in Ryan Izurka gaining full custody of his daughter, Kayla, leaving her mother, Heather Unbehaun, with only court-mandated visitation rights. The sequence of events began on the 4th of July, 2017, while the rest of the nation was distracted by Independence Day parades and fireworks. 9-year-old Kayla was picked up by her mother for a scheduled holiday visit. To the outside world, it looked like a perfectly normal mother-daughter outing. The custody exchange was set for the very next day, July 5, a date that carried immense emotional weight, as it was also Kayla's 9th birthday. That morning, Ryan arrived at Heather's residence, anticipating a joyful reunion to celebrate his daughter's special day. Instead, he was met with the suffocating silence of a completely empty house. When questioned, family members relayed a message Heather had left behind. She claimed she was taking Kayla on a short camping trip to a state park in Wisconsin. But as the hours dragged on and the scheduled return time came and went without a word, the illusion rapidly crumbled. The camping trip was quickly exposed as a fabricated smokescreen, a decoy narrative designed to buy Heather the most critical element in any escape: time. When investigators began to peel back the layers of the disappearance, they realized they weren't dealing with an impulsive, emotional flight. They were looking at a flawlessly calculated vanishing act. Heather had ruthlessly orchestrated a plan to completely erase their existence from the modern world. Financial records showed she had preemptively withdrawn a massive amount of cash in the days leading up to the holiday, ensuring she would never have to swipe a bank card and trigger a location alert. She had methodically packed their belongings and, crucially, discarded all of their electronic devices. By tossing away their cell phones and abandoning the internet, Heather willfully plunged herself and her daughter into the dark ages. She understood that in the 21st century, technology is a leash, and she severed it completely. This cold, calculated discipline effectively blinded law enforcement. There were no digital footprints to track, no cell towers to ping, and no surveillance cameras capturing her vehicle's license plate. The sheer sophistication required to sustain this level of absolute invisibility shocked even seasoned professionals. Emphasizing the extreme difficulty of maintaining such a ghost-like existence, a representative from the NCMEC stated,
Detected over a period of 5 or 6 years is really, really uncommon.
Through meticulous planning and a chilling commitment to staying off the grid, Heather Unbehaun successfully engineered a black hole that swallowed her daughter, plunging a desperate father into a grueling, 6-year nightmare. While law enforcement agencies found themselves entirely paralyzed by the deliberate absence of technological breadcrumbs, Ryan Izerka flatly refused to surrender to the void. The investigative trail had gone ice cold. There were no cell phone pings to track, no credit card transactions to trace, and no surveillance cameras capturing their movements. Yet, where traditional investigative methods hit an impenetrable brick wall, a father's relentless determination ignited a completely different kind of search. He understood that if his daughter was living completely off the grid, they could not rely on tracking her current movements in the physical world. Instead, they had to project her existence into the future. This realization leads to the profound truth behind the miraculous Netflix breakthrough. The image that flashed on the screen for those fleeting 3 seconds, the very image that triggered a teenage employee's memory and brought down a fugitive, was not a genuine photograph. Kayla Unbehaun had not posed for a camera in 6 years. Instead, the image was an intricate age-progressed rendering. It was a synthetic, digital blueprint of a face generated by specialized software and highly skilled forensic artists at the NCMEC. It was a technological projection of what a 9-year-old child might look like as a 15-year-old adolescent. However, artificial intelligence and forensic software alone cannot capture the nuanced biological reality of human aging. The startling hyper-realism of Kayla's age-progressed photo, the exact realism that allowed a childhood friend to instantly recognize her from nearly 700 miles away, was fueled by a father's exhaustive labor of love. Ryan did not merely hand over a school portrait of 9-year-old Kayla. He provided the forensic team with an extensive, living genetic map. Understanding that facial structures change drastically during puberty, Ryan painstakingly gathered hundreds of photographs encompassing the entire family tree. He sourced images of grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, and siblings from both the maternal and paternal sides, capturing them at various stages of their own adolescence. By feeding this rich visual DNA into the system, Ryan allowed the forensic artist to understand exactly how the genetic markers of Kayla's specific lineage would manifest. They could predict the shifting of her jawline based on her father's teenage photos, or the setting of her cheekbones based on her aunt's. This meticulous collection of family features transformed a generic software estimation into a highly accurate, living portrait of a missing teenager. Emphasizing this monumental contribution, a representative from NCMEC explained the critical nature of Ryan's dedication to the forensic process.
Was absolutely incredible in helping us and providing us with images of the family. And that's really what's key in doing these age progressed photos. You need pictures of family members, mom, dad, brother, sister, aunt, uncles, as many family members as you can, and the father was great.
Ultimately, the miracle at the Asheville shopping center was not merely a stroke of blind luck or a coincidence of television programming. It was the direct result of a father who fiercely fought against time and silence. Ryan's refusal to let his daughter's memory fade, combined with the cutting-edge capabilities of forensic artistry, created a powerful digital beacon. The flawlessly executed escape plan by Heather Unbehaun, which successfully bypassed the entire national security grid, was ultimately dismantled by a synthesized photograph. It was a face from the future, mathematically crafted by science, but fundamentally powered by a father's enduring love. When the general public hears about a case of parental abduction, a common, albeit deeply misguided narrative frequently emerges. The image of a desperate, heartbroken mother, driven by an overpowering, fierce love for her child, acting out of a primal need to keep her baby close. But as we dig deeper into the psychological anatomy of the Kayla Unbehaun case, this romanticized illusion shatters completely. The true motive behind this staggering 6-year disappearance is not rooted in unconditional maternal love, but rather in a highly dangerous, toxic manifestation of selfishness. Before we unpack the chilling psychology and family dynamics behind this crime, if you are fascinated by the hidden behavioral patterns of perpetrators and want to explore more deep dive analyses, hit that subscribe button to join us here at Crime Cases Lab. Your engagement helps us keep bringing these complex investigations to light. To accurately understand Heather Unbehaun's descent from a disgruntled parent into a wanted fugitive, we have to look strictly at the unvarnished facts established in Kane County, Illinois. Official family court records from early 2017 paint a very clear, objective picture of the environment preceding the abduction. Heather was not a victim of a biased or unfair legal system. Rather, she systematically brought the legal consequences upon herself. The presiding judge ultimately stripped her of primary custody and awarded full legal and physical custody to Ryan Izurka, precisely because of Heather's repeated, documented failures to comply with legal agreements and basic child care regulations. Instead of cooperating to provide a stable, healthy environment, she exhibited a consistent pattern of defiance. She demonstrated a persistent inability to prioritize her daughter's overall well-being over her own personal grievances and desire for control. The court did not sever her from her child's life. She was legally granted scheduled holiday and weekend visitations. But for Heather, sharing custody and playing by the rules was simply not an option. This defiant mindset leads us directly to the dark core of family abductions. In the realm of criminal psychology, non-custodial parental abduction is rarely about protecting the child from imminent, genuine harm. Instead, it is almost entirely about control, spite, and absolute possession. It occurs when a parent's inflated ego and bitterness completely eclipse their fundamental duty of care. In Heather's twisted logic, the court order was an unacceptable challenge to her absolute authority. By orchestrating the kidnapping, she was effectively weaponizing her own daughter, using Kayla as a tool to inflict maximum, prolonged agony on her ex-partner. This brand of toxic selfishness fundamentally warps the definition of parenting. It reduces a living, breathing child, who has her own emotional needs and inherent rights to both parents, into a mere piece of property to be hoarded away from others. The ultimate tragedy of this psychological distortion is the agonizing, irreversible price paid by the child herself. Consider the grim, suffocating reality of the 6 years Kayla was forced to endure. Heather's supposedly maternal decision meant forcing her own 9-year-old daughter to live a lie every single day of her formative adolescence. Kayla was brutally stripped of her true identity, her legal name, and her rightful heritage. She was denied the foundation of a proper, consistent education, as enrolling a fugitive child in a standard school system with verifiable documents risks immediate exposure. Worst of all, she was ruthlessly severed from her father, her grandparents, and her entire extended family, who spent every waking moment agonizing over her fate. Heather decided that forcing her daughter to live in the shadows, constantly looking over her shoulder as a fugitive, was a better alternative than simply following the law. This was never an act of love. It was the ultimate act of emotional theft. For 2,139 consecutive nights, Ryan Izurka went to sleep, staring at the ceiling, tormented by the agonizing unknown. Was his daughter safe? Was she healthy? Did she even remember him? Then, late on a Saturday night in May 2023, the agonizing silence was finally broken. The phone rang, delivering the impossible news from authorities in North Carolina. Kayla had been found. She was alive, unharmed, and waiting. Ryan did not hesitate. There was no time to wait for the first morning flight, no patience for airport security lines or bureaucratic delays. Accompanied by Kayla's grandfather, Ryan immediately grabbed his car keys and hit the road. What followed was a breathless, adrenaline-fueled 700-mile drive through the dead of night. As their car tore across the dark highways from the familiar suburbs of Illinois to the mountainous terrain of Asheville, one can only imagine the whirlwind of emotions inside that vehicle. Every mile marker passed was a step closer to ending a 6-year nightmare, fueled by a mixture of profound relief, overwhelming anxiety, and the desperate hope of finally holding his child again. The eventual reunion, carefully mediated and shielded from media cameras by the Department of Social Services, was undeniably profound. Yet, it was also layered with unimaginable psychological complexity. Ryan wasn't just hugging the innocent 9-year-old girl who had vanished after a 4th of July parade. He was embracing a 15-year-old young woman. He was meeting a teenager whose entire cognitive understanding of the world, her family, and her own identity had been actively manipulated and rewritten by her captor for the vast majority of her conscious life. However, while tears of long overdue joy and healing were being shed in one part of the city, a starkly different and deeply controversial reality was unfolding inside the Buncombe County Detention Center. This brings us to the agonizing paradox of the modern justice system, a reality that many advocates view as the ultimate slap in the face to victims of long-term abduction. Heather Unbehaun was officially taken into custody and booked on the outstanding Kane County felony warrant for child abduction. Given the staggering severity of her actions evading federal tracking, crossing state lines, forcing a child to live under assumed identities, and maliciously depriving a father of his daughter for 6 years, one might reasonably expect her to remain firmly behind bars, pending extradition and trial. Recognizing her proven history as an extreme flight risk, a judge set her bail at a massive $2,500,000. For most average citizens, $250,000 acts as an insurmountable financial wall. But the American criminal justice system's reliance on cash bail frequently yields infuriatingly disproportionate results. Astoundingly, despite the monumental sum, Heather quickly secured the necessary funds to post bond. By Tuesday morning, less than 72 hours after her meticulously crafted 6-year deception had finally collapsed, Heather Unbehaun simply walked out of the jailhouse doors, breathing the free air as she awaited her next court date. The optics of this legal loophole are brutally jarring and sparked immediate, fiery outrage across true crime communities and among child protection advocates. A perpetrator deliberately inflicts half a decade of profound psychological trauma, steals the most irreplaceable commodity in the universe, time, and treats a human life like personal property. Yet, because she could marshal the necessary financial resources, her immediate consequence was nothing more than a temporary weekend inconvenience. She effectively bought her freedom, walking back out into the sun, while her daughter and her ex-partner were left to begin the excruciating, lifelong task of repairing a completely shattered reality. The Amber Alerts have been officially canceled, the missing posters have been taken down, and the fleeting national headlines have already begun to fade. From the outside looking in, the resolution of the Kayla Unbehaun case is a resounding, triumphant victory, a rare and miraculous conclusion to a missing child investigation that had long gone cold. But for 15-year-old Kayla, the closing of the active police file does not mark a tidy, happy ending. Rather, it marks the daunting beginning of a profound psychological battle. While she has physically returned to the safety of her father's home in Illinois, her mind is left navigating the devastating wreckage of a stolen childhood. Kayla is now confronting a severe, unprecedented identity crisis. For 6 incredibly formative years, spanning from the innocent days of a 9-year-old to the complex, sensitive years of adolescence, her entire worldview was meticulously constructed on a foundation of absolute deceit. Every alias she was told to use, every fabricated backstory she was instructed to memorize, and every manipulative reason given for why she could never contact her father was a calculated lie spun by her own mother. To suddenly realize that the one person you trusted most in the world, your sole provider and protector during a life on the run, was actually your captor, is a psychological trauma that is almost impossible to quantify. Rebuilding a life from scratch means getting to know a father who was forcibly erased from her narrative, reconnecting with a family she was taught to forget, and painstakingly learning how to live in the truth. The emotional scars of this forced isolation will require years of specialized therapy and boundless patience from everyone around her. As the dust settles on this extraordinary manhunt, the cold machinery of the legal system will finally take its course. Heather Unbehaun will undoubtedly stand before a judge in a Kane County courtroom to answer for the felony charges of child abduction. She will face prosecutors, documented evidence, and potentially a lengthy prison sentence. Yet, the heaviest, most enduring punishment Heather will face cannot be handed down by a judge, nor can it be served in a penitentiary cell. The ultimate sentence lies squarely in the eyes of her daughter. The defining question that will haunt Heather for the rest of her life isn't how many years she might spend behind bars, but rather, can Kayla ever find it in her heart to forgive the mother who selfishly stole 6 irreplaceable years of her youth? The legal system can mandate court dates and jail time, but only Kayla holds the power of absolution. The resolution of Kayla's story gives immense hope to thousands of searching families, but it also leaves us grappling with deeply frustrating realities. We must ask ourselves tough questions about a justice system where a perpetrator who steals half a decade of a child's life can simply buy her freedom on bail, the very next morning for $25,000, while a desperate father suffered in the dark for over 2,000 days. What are your thoughts on the glaring loopholes within the cash bail system? Does it fundamentally fail the victims of parental abduction? Drop your opinions in the comments below. We want to hear your perspective on this controversial aspect of the law. Finally, if there is one profound lesson to take away from this incredible story, it is that awareness truly works. A single, fleeting image on a screen brought a child home. Please hit the like button and share this video to keep the spotlight burning for the countless other missing children who are still waiting for their own miracle. You never know who might be watching. Thank you for tuning in to Crime Cases LAB, and until next time, stay vigilant and never stop seeking the truth.